Alright, welcome back to another day. Today I figured I would do a bit of a different video. Some of you have been asking me, for my config, what kind of settings do I have, what am I using as a distro and stuff. So, I figured that I'll kind of do a quick rundown on my config, the different things that I'm using and that. I've answered some of the comments and, on my GitHub profile, there's a repo with all the different dot files, but, obviously a video is a much better way of me explaining the things that I'm using, why I'm using them and all that. So, as you can see here, I am currently using Fedora 42. I recently upgraded from 41, but yeah, I'm also using Hyperland here. And yeah, the reason I actually didn't mean to use Hyperland at first. I wanted to try KDE because I thought it looked really cool, and I just wanted to try it. But there's a option where you can install Debian with KDE, but for some reason the Debian installation just kept failing, so I couldn't do anything. And I knew that Fedora came with KDE by default. So I just gave it a try, and then I saw that KDE runs on Wayland on the background, and it was like, well, I can try Hyperland now, uh, without having to go through all the struggle of going from like an X11 distro with like Ubuntu or Debian and then trying to get Hyperland working and all that kind of stuff. So I just installed Hyperland, started using it. At first, it was a little bit confusing, but I quickly got used to it, and it's been great. I've not looked back since. So yeah, let's just go into my good old big folder here. I think I'm gonna have more than I actually want to show. Yeah, let's just go, for example, into Alacrity, which is a terminal that I'm using. The reason why it's very simple. It's because I can set the window opacity to any kind of value that I want, giving me this really cool effect of being able to see the background while still having, still clearly seeing the terminal and all that, which is great. I couldn't do that in X11, I think. So I didn't really know about it because Hyperland comes with Kitty as the default terminal. I just started using it, and then I think I saw it on Reddit or somewhere else where you can actually set the window opacity in Alacrity in Wayland. So that's kind of the only reason why I'm using it. I don't think Ghosty allows to change the window opacity. I think, and you can obviously set the window rules in Hyperland, but this kind of gives it a more kind of realistic look. Because you only kind of change the opacity of the background, and the text is still very visible. Meanwhile, with the window rules and all that, it just gets a little hard to see. So yeah, like I said, this is my config. There's nothing really interesting. This is my font, the font that I'm using. I have a bunch of them. Whoa, you know me to do that. I have a bunch of nerd fonts installed. I just like switching between them. But right now I'm currently going with this one. And here's the only kind of important part of the config, which is the opacity to 0.5. I can go and change it to like 0.8, so it becomes a little darker, or 0.2, for example, and it becomes way clearer. But I think 0.5 is the way to go. It's just you still have this darkness and kind of window feeling, but you can still clearly see the background, which is great. So yeah, that's kind of the only thing right now. Um, the only reason that I'm using an Alacrity and not any other terminal. So yeah, moving on. I think we can go into my hyper folder. So yeah, first let's go with hyperlink conf. Here's some commands that I have to execute. This is kind of to set my monitor because I have some trouble with the monitors and stuff. Some layout for the different monitors. I'm currently using two monitors. One where the webcam is, and another one which is my main monitor. And yeah, this is just to set those up to get the different workspaces. I was having trouble with the fonts, so this is kind of a good way to reset the cache of the fonts and all that. But yeah, and then I execute Waybar and Hyperpaper. So yeah, my terminal of choice, of course, Alacrity. This I have not touched it, and menu is just Wolfie, which I currently have it to the super key, which is Alt and then D. So I just do D. That's kind of what I have. I think because when I first went from i3, because before I was using Debian with i3, and when I first got into Hyperland, I didn't want to spend too much time getting used to the key bindings and all that, so I just grabbed the ones that I had on i3 and put them here. So, it was just from the get-go. So yeah, like I said, for example, to kill the window, I just have the super, which is Alt Shift and Q to kill it. To open a new terminal, for example, is Alt Enter and that kind of stuff. To open the Wolfie, like I said, Alt D and that kind of thing. So yeah, and pretty much all this stuff I've not changed it. This comes default, I think. I think the only things that I've changed are this to change the volume, and that's about it. And then just some window rules that I have for certain applications. Nothing too fancy, nothing too crazy. This is pretty much the default config. The only thing that I've changed is this, for example. This is so that I can have a snipping tool, kind of like in Windows, which is something that I really missed here on Linux. And then I looked in Reddit, and everybody was using this, but I just decided to give it a try. And then you can do this Alt X, and then you can just select this, and it copies the image into your clipboard, which is very handy. But yeah, that's pretty much the only thing. Then I have Alt L for Hyperlark, which I'm not gonna do because I don't know if the recording will still remain. But yeah, and that's about it. Obviously, Alt F to whoop, go full screen. Alt F to go back into normal size. That's pretty much it. Nothing too crazy. Then I have the Hyperlock, which I don't know. Hyperlock, it's really, oh, did not mean to use this one. I have not changed anything. Like literally, this is from the config that I copied from GitHub. I have no image. I have no style. It looks pretty much dark, and that's it. I have not taken the time to actually set it up or anything. Maybe I'll do it in the future. But that's kind of what I have. So yeah, maybe here, you get a little things like the images, which I have not set up. As you can see, this is not my user, so it doesn't work, of course. It just displays the hour and whatnot, and that's about it. And then you have a text box to input your password so you can log back in. That's it. Okay. And then I have Hyperpaper, which is for the background image, and this is pretty much it. You preload the image, and then once you kind of execute the app, you load the image, which I execute the app when Hyperland first loads. I have it as one of the first commands in the config. I say, yeah, I just have a bunch of, let's see if I can, pictures here. I have a bunch of different backgrounds. Japan Night City, which is the one that I was using before. No, this one was the one that I was using before. Actually, I tried to change it to a couple of these, but didn't really ended up liking them. So I just found this one on Wallhaven. Really good place to find your. Well, I'm actually gonna close it because there are a couple of interesting wallpapers. But yeah, Wallhaven is the way to go if you wanna find your super cool wallpapers like this one or many others. Um, so yeah, that's 3 lines of config. Again, nothing too crazy. You go back into config. And let's see, what do I have here else that might be of your interest? I did try Ghosty, but I couldn't change the window opacity, so I just uninstalled it. Actually, let me do this. Okay, good. And then what else? What else? What else? Okay, let's just go into Waybar, for example. That might be a good one. Config JSON C. So here I kind of have my modules and all that. So on the left, I have the workspaces and the window. This all comes as well from the one that I had on i3 on the polyvar. So it looks very similar. So I have the workspaces that I can switch between. Then I have the name of the window that I'm currently on. At the middle, I have the date, and then if I click on it, I get the actual day that I'm in. And if I hover over it, this nice little calendar shows up. I think this looks really clean to kind of have the date in the middle, and then the different modules left and right. I like to keep it simple. I don't like to have too many things like the network and all that kind of stuff. Um, Battery, I don't have it because this is a computer. I mean a PC, so it doesn't have battery. But yeah, that's pretty much about it. I have my RAM usage, I have my CPU usage, and I have the volume, which I barely change it. So pretty helpful, pretty clean, pretty nice. I just like to keep things simple. Yeah, that's about it. This battery thing is here. The network here, I've not removed them. But yeah, that's about it. Let's just go. Then I have yeah, this two styles, which I got them from GitHub, I think. I just copied them over, thought it looked cool, and then just started using it. And yeah, so going into Wolfie, for example, again, very simple thing. If we go into my config, this is what I have. Allow images true, so that the different icons are displayed. I changed the font. I think it looks really clean on this on Wolfie to have this kind of font. I think it looks really cool. And then as a style, once again, I copied it from GitHub, got it into my machine, and just added this line. And I'm currently using Dropbox, which I think it kind of matches the whole vibe of the computer and stuff. But yeah, I have never really put much thought into it. And then let's just go into the interesting stuff, which I guess it could be my Neobin config. So let's just start with it. All right. So what am I using? I'm using as a package manager. I'm using Lazy, of course. Started using um Packer because I started using Neovim thanks to the Primogen video, which he uses Packer. But then I decided to make the switch to Lazy because it was kind of like the more adapted one in the ecosystem and stuff. So yeah. I recently changed from Rosepine, which you can see here, to Tokenite Storm, which I think it looks really cool. Honestly, I think it looks pretty nice. It's real with this kind of like orange and stuff background. I think it looks kind of matches the whole vibe. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with it for the moment. Now maybe I'll change it in the future. But yeah, and then here I have some settings to kind of make the whole NeoVim background transparent as well, because one thing is the terminal itself, and then another thing is the NeoVim background, which I then have to set it up with these different lines to make everything transparent. For example, if I pull up my harpoon and stuff like that, it is still transparent. So it keeps the whole kind of workflow through NeoVim transparent as well. I don't know what this is commented, but I'm using oil as well. So you can see here I'm using oil to kind of move through different files and folders and stuff. So yeah, let's just go into my Lua folder. This is something that Lazy needs, I guess. So in here I have different things. I have config, which is the config of Lazy that I just copy from the GitHub, and that's it. Lazy, well, you have him come in here, and then you just copy. Whoa. Okay, so I'm sure there is an installation thing here. Documentation. Anyways, this is the default config of Lazy. I don't need to know anything else. That's it. It does the job. Okay, moving on into my kind of personal folder. I have two things, which again taken from the primitive video. I have my init.lua, which requires these two files, and these two files are remap.lua, where I have these different things. This would usually be used to pull up the net RW, but in my case, since I'm using oil, I use it with liter PB to launch oil. The good thing about oil is that you can treat files and folders as NeoVim buffers, which is really good. Once you kind of get all the different NeoVim key maps and stuff, it's really handy to also be able to use it with folders and files. So yeah, that's why I'm using it. And then another thing, this is so that I can move across. Let me show you actually here. These two key bindings, these two here. Well, actually, I have no idea what this is for. Liter what? Okay, I think this is to move to the center of the window. I don't know. I don't really use it, but this too is so when I'm in large files, I can just go Control D to move down, and kind of the cursor stays on the same place. So and then I can use Control U to move upwards. So if I have a really big file, I can quickly move up and down without really having to use the Shift G to go to the bottom or the double G to go to the top. So yeah, really handy. Um, Moving on into another part, we go into my plugins. So I think it's better if I just do something like this, Lazy, so you can see the different plugins that I have. These are all for the LSP stuff, git signs, so that I can know what lines I've deleted and what lines I've added from commits and stuff. blue align to kind of give it a more cleaner look than the one that it's on the default. Some LSP config as well, mini icons to show the different language icons and stuff. You know, a little bit fancy. Auto pairs, I don't like having to write the whole curly and parentheses and all that, so I just get this to whenever I type. Actually, let me show you. So whenever I go in here, if I, for example, type curly brace, it automatically closes it for me, so I don't have to be typing the closing one. People have their opinions on it. I think it's pretty handy. That's all. Actually, let me go back into. Whoa. Let me go back into my folder. So plugins, yeah, this is what I have. Don't think I have anything crazy in terms of config in this one. I mostly just keep it pretty default. Um, this once again taken from the prime image video. Is for example I add this one, then I go into another file. I can attach the file to my harpoon with letter A, and then for example you can see here I have my 1-2. I could also do this with Control E. I pull up the harpoon menu, and then with the Neobin keymaps I can move between them, and then I can hit enter and go into another one. A way much faster way of doing this is just do Control 1, Control 2 to move between the different files that I have on the menu. Then I can delete them like this. So yeah, that's pretty handy to move across files. That's really useful. And then I don't think I have anything else that crazy. This is all default as well. Tokyo Night, if anyone's interested, here is my config. The only crazy thing is that I have this transparent kind of options, because if you do not do them, um, well, this is kind of what happens. As you can see here, there's like some weird things that I don't really like. So, I just put those options in, and it gets the job done of keeping everything transparent. So yeah. Let me do a quick lazy update. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I don't have anything too crazy. I don't use Tmux, although I probably should use it. I don't have any crazy config with some crazy key maps and all that. I just like to keep it pretty default. Pretty simple, and it just gets the job done for me right now. So yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have to say about my config. If you have any question about it, you can leave it in the comments, whatever. Um, and yeah, just you can comment down below what kind of videos would you like to see and stuff. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, thank you guys.